Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. In this one it is Game Week 10 captaincy model. We'll have a quick look at the Game Week 9 results and then a look at the numbers for Game Week 10. So, Game Week 9 results on screen. Pretty good week all in all for the model. Obviously Haaland was top. 6 points feels like a disappointment, especially as many managers use the triple captaincy chip. It was a good week to use it. It's probably as good a single game week as we were going to get. As I discussed in last week's captaincy model video, it was just as good an option as game week 2 was. Obviously, the outcome was vastly different. Although Haaland did put up over 2xG, he missed some absolute sitters. There was one from about a yard out at the back post, which he somehow put wide. And then he had a header, I believe, as well, that was within the 6-yard box. Basically, he could and potentially should have scored a lot more. But 6 points, still a return technically, but slightly disappointing if you did use your chip. Then Cole Palmer with 10 points. Again, he could have had a lot more. Watching that game, I mean, there was a penalty ruled out towards the end of the game, I think, which could have been interesting. There was a couple of times when it seems like every week there's a situation where a player could square it to Palmer and they don't. It's usually Madueke. He's potentially the most greedy footballer in the Premier League. He tends to just shoot on sight rather than playing the easy ball. It just seems like every week Palmer hauls and scores points, but he could also have loads more. So yeah, he's just one to get in your team. You could wait until Game Week 12 now. We'll talk about that in a later video this week, but he's just brilliant. He really is. The finish was fantastic. And yeah, the minutes were about right. 10 points. Mbomo, still probably pronouncing his name wrong, but 15 points. Obviously got 2 goals. He scored a penalty as the winner. That fixture was just always going to be fantastic. If it wasn't for Haaland's unbelievable fixture, then he would have been a genuine captaincy option. So, yeah, he's just fantastic. As I mentioned in one of my other videos, if you don't have him, just get him in your team. He's so good. Phil Foden, we had him at 65 minutes. He played more than that. The reason we had him at 65 was because there was always a chance that he wasn't going to start. But yeah, unfortunately slightly disappointing. He didn't actually look too involved either. I know he had a shot. I think he had a shot from outside the box at one point. Didn't look too threatening throughout the game, really. Then Son, again, as I mentioned in last week's captaincy model video, this is the problem where I have to record this video early in the week, where if I'd have recorded this later in the week, Son wouldn't have been at 80 minutes. He'd have been a hell of a lot lower, probably in the 20s, because Ange said that he's unlikely to feature. So again, that's the reason that he was 5th on this list, because we had him at 80 expected minutes. So as I always say, you can look at this, and then if we get further information down the line, like we did with Son last week, you can always temper your expectations to the expected minutes that you think. If I know that a player is kind of potentially going to feature or maybe injured, then I sometimes have a look at different expected minute scenarios for them. So as I did a couple of weeks ago, I said that Son and Foden, if you thought their minutes were good, then they're in this position. If not, then they're in this position. But you might just have to kind of temper your expectations yourself on some of these players. Salah, Arsenal away, 10 points. He just keeps scoring. He's fantastic. Again, it was the fixture that had him so low down. He is usually top 3, and because it was Arsenal away, he is where he was, but 10 points. Gvardiol just keeps finding ways to return, whether it's a weak-footed goal from the outside of the box or just a clean sheet with 3 bonus points. He's just a fantastic, fantastic defender, and he's well worth his price. The problem is, I don't think I can ever have him at higher than 76 minutes, just because there's always a chance of a benching with City defenders, although he probably is the one that is least likely to be benched. But I think his minutes are kind of fine. I could maybe creep them up if he keeps starting, but yeah, mainly fine. Saka, I had him at 65 minutes. He obviously scored and got 9 points. Obviously, Arsenal players are really tough, especially Saka. He's potentially injured most weeks, and Arteta just spouts absolutely nonsense at us in his press conferences. So his expected minutes are always going to be tough. I had him at 65 at the start of the week. I probably wouldn't have changed that, to be honest, later in the week, because we didn't have any information that suggested that he was definitely going to start. So I couldn't really go higher than 65, I don't think. Watkins, 83 expected minutes. I think he played roughly that. I'm not too sure. I haven't looked, but from what I remember, he might have played the whole game, actually. I'm not sure. But yeah, 2 points, unfortunately. And Bruno Fernandes really should have returned. If Dalot didn't miss that open goal, for example, or Bruno had a headed chance himself that he did pretty poorly with. But yeah, he continues to be in this top 10. Many people won't agree with that, and I can understand why, but it could be different now that Erik ten Hag has been sacked, so we may get this new manager bounce. Man United have some fantastic fixtures coming up. This coming week is a little bit tough. It's a home game, but it's against Chelsea. After that, they've got a great run of 3 fixtures, so expect to see Bruno Fernandes in these videos in the coming weeks. But anyway, let's look at the Game Week 10 numbers now. Right, so as you can see this week, Salah is top with Brighton at home, 6.33 expected points. He has a fairly sizable gap, actually, between himself and Haaland in second place. That is probably largely down to the fact that Salah is playing at home and Haaland is playing away, because I'm not really sure that the Bournemouth defence is a great deal better than the Brighton defence. So it probably is the home and away fixture, but that does make sense. Then Palmer is in third with Man United away, and Saka is in fourth with Newcastle away. Again, both away fixtures. If they were home fixtures, especially Saka, I think that he would potentially be up there with Haaland in second, given that Newcastle's defence hasn't been great this season. I mean, Chelsea cut through them multiple times at the weekend. So, yeah, Bruno Fernandes is up here again in fifth. Chelsea at home. The Chelsea defence hasn't really been solid, to be honest, and it's a home fixture. And this could be potentially some new manager bounce involved as well. Be interesting to see who they do get in and kind of how that works out for Bruno Fernandes and the team in general. Then we have Trent in sixth. It's always interesting to see defenders in this. Obviously, Gvardiol was in it last week. We've had Porro in it before. Trent, I've got him at 82 expected minutes. At the beginning of the season, he was playing slightly less and Conor Bradley was coming in a bit more. I think now he does seem to be playing more minutes, and between Game Week 9 and Game Week 10, there is EFL Cup fixtures, which you'd imagine that Trent wouldn't play in, so his minutes probably are... I've got around 82. If you think I've got that wrong, then do let me know, but I'd say maybe you could creep them a little bit higher, but that seems fine. Brighton at home, great fixture, obviously. Then we've got Eze with Wolves away. Now, the Wolves defence continues to struggle, so I think we'll quite often see Wolves as an opposition fixture in these captaincy model videos. Eze, again, he's not really been getting the returns this season, but he's looked great. He has been getting, I think he's top 3 for most shots in the league. He's creating lots, especially at the weekend he was brilliant, so I think returns will start to come for Eze. The further down this list we get, it gets much tighter. So Foden and Son both with 70 minutes. So this assumes that Son is fine and fit. Given that I think it was a hamstring injury for Son, so I think even if Ange says he's fine to play, I would be surprised if he plays 90 minutes. So I've got him at 70. I think that's probably best case scenario if he starts. Ange did say that it was touch and go, or something. Maybe it wasn't Ange that said it, but I saw somewhere that it was touch and go whether someone was going to play at the weekend against Crystal Palace. So I think he probably will be fine for this game against Aston Villa. But yeah, I wouldn't expect 90 minutes. So I think 70 is probably all right. Let me know again in the comments if you think I've got that wrong. If Son's minutes are higher, if they are 80, then he is up in 5th. I did check, I put them to 80, and it puts him up to 5th above Bruno Fernandes. So that kind of makes sense given how tight it is from Fernandes down to Diaz, who is in 10th with 67 minutes. Again, this assumes a start. I think 67 minutes is probably best case scenario. Given that he did start at the weekend against Arsenal, it would probably make sense that Gakpo plays midweek and then we see Diaz start next weekend. So I think those minutes are probably fine. Foden kind of skipped over, but at number 8, I'm not sure I can go much higher with his minutes either. Given that if he does play, he probably is likely to play 80 to 90 minutes, but there's a very, very high chance he's benched and doesn't start. So that has to be accounted for in the X minutes. If you think his minutes are higher, then again, he probably goes above Fernandes into 5th. I didn't actually check that one, but he probably does go above Fernandes into 5th behind Saka. But yeah, that's this week. Salah is ahead by a fair distance. So if you own him, I would be putting the armband on him. And then after that, it's Haaland and then Palmer. Anyway, that's all for this one. If you liked it, do hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.